being choked by Chappell Rowan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rewind Podcast, episode number 4 for Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. My name is Marty Sliva, and I am honored to be joined by Darren Mooney, Jack Packard, and producer Eric. Apologies if you heard us talking about Chappell Rowan, because that is all Jack wants to talk about, and we're just catching up, if I'm being honest. Darren and I are just riding his coattails, trying to figure out what's going on with this Chappell Rowan.
The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess is a near perfect album, and I will not hear any condescending opinions.
I would never.
Yeah, some of our guests take us to church. Jack took us to chapel.
Oh, that was really good. Hachi Machi.
Hell yeah.
Welcome to the Rewind. This is Second Wind's movie, TV, and entertainment podcast. Today, we're going to have a little bit of a shorter episode. Darren has a hard out in about an hour, and plus we have our Gamescom stream in 2 hours, and Eric and I are both going to be on that. So we're going to keep this pretty tight, just talking about the big movie this week, which is Alien Romulus, the new Alien film directed by Fede Alvarez, who is best known for 2013's Evil Dead reboot, as well as the Don't Breathe films duology. I think he only wrote the second one. I don't think he directed the second one, because I think he did a Spider's Web or something.
Yeah, he did The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, I think.
That sounds like a fake movie. I know that's the name of the movie.
The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
All the things she said. Directed by Fede Alvarez. This is the 7th mainline Alien film. 9th if you're a weirdo. If you're a weirdo, and we can see if any of us are weirdos and count the AVPs, because God knows they wanted to count the AVPs.
I think you have to count the AVPs.
Do you? You can't pretend that didn't happen. You can't just call a mulligan and be like, look, guys, the franchise was just on holidays between 1998 and 2000. In
my opinion, there's 3 Lord of the Rings movies, and I don't know what y'all are talking about.
There are
like 6 Middle-earth movies.
We're not talking about any of those. There's 3 of them. So yeah, we'll do an opening section of this where we'll try to remain spoiler free, and then we'll give you like a demarcation line where we're going to go full spoilers, because there's a lot to talk about that isn't spoilery, but obviously to dig into the full meat and potatoes of what we liked or didn't like, we'll have to do that. But right off the bat, Alien Romulus, it revolves around a group of young disenfranchised space colonists who are kind of stuck under the bureaucratic thumb of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. Like they think that they've paid their dues and they've done their time. And then all of a sudden, when they go to leave the planet, they say, "Oh, by the way, your time has been doubled. So ostensibly, you are never leaving this place." And so they come up with a plan to escape those circumstances by scavenging cryo chambers from a derelict dual space station that's orbiting the planet called the Romulus and the Remus. Yeah, and that space station in like 30 hours is about to collide with the rings of a planet, which that's kind of cool.
Very cool.
I mean, it sucks for the space station, but it's kind of a cool thing. And so they go there. Everything's going well until spoilers. Aliens arrive. In an
Aliens movie.
What an Aliens movie. So
what a shock.
What a shocker. My 2 questions right off the bat I want to ask both of you. We'll start with you, Darren. What did you think of this as a sci-fi horror movie? And then what did you think of this as a quote unquote aliens movie?
I think both of them are kind of intertwined. There are parts of it that I really, really liked. I think like Fede Alvarez, whatever you think of his aesthetic, he does manage to retain his identity, making what is a major franchise blockbuster. And that has always been, for me, the appeal of the Alien franchise. Has been the sense in which these are auteur-driven monster movies, where you give them to a filmmaker and you end up going down whatever rabbit hole that filmmaker's interested in. Whether it is, James Cameron being like, there should be a cool, sexy woman and she should have a family around her and that should be okay. Or David Fincher being like, I'm making a studio film, but I'm really not happy about it. Or even, Jean-Pierre Jeunet being like, I do not speak the English, but I like the Hollywood movies. So what do you know? I don't know why he's Italian. But even like you mentioned the Alien versus Predator movies, where like Paul W.S. Anderson is like, the Predator should be a wife guy and we should have a slow motion shot of a facehugger moving through the air as the camera bullet times around it. There is like this sense throughout the franchise of like the Alien movies retaining a sense of authorship that doesn't always happen in mainstream studio films. And I think that does happen here to a certain extent. which is that like this is an Alvarez movie. The premise of this is basically Don't Breathe, but in space, where it is, as you mentioned, a story of a disenfranchised group of people trapped on a horrible place. In Alien Romulus, it is being trapped on this distant colony world. In Don't Breathe, it is Detroit, because Detroit gave us a tax break to shoot here. But they break into a premise and facility, and they quickly discover that there's something there that they did not anticipate being there, and the robbery is not going to go as easily as they had planned. It is very much Don't Breathe, but in space, which is a nice hook. And I will say it looks and it sounds gorgeous. Like Alvarez, to his credit, finds ways of doing things in space that no other science fiction film or no other mainstream science fiction film has done. You mentioned the rings, like the idea of the rings of a planet being solid pieces of rock, which they are, but you don't generally get to see in science fiction films. Things like the use of light in space, where there are moments, even in the opening scenes, where like the camera is behind an object and it's just pitch black and the object moves and then starlight appears around it. Or there's a moment towards the climax of the film, which this isn't a spoiler, where like you're under a ship in space, so it's completely dark, but there's a hole in it. So that hole becomes this kind of like shining light beaming down at the characters. Like it is visually and sonically really, really, really compelling. As for the movie itself, unfortunately, there were moments of this where I really just bristled, and we'll probably talk about them when we get the spoilers, but like, this is a modern franchise film, unfortunately, for better and for worse. It is a movie that is very much built around the idea of, hey, you guys remember the two good Alien movies, right? It is like, in terms of, you mentioned the basic plot summary, this is not a spoiler. It takes place between Ridley Scott's Alien and James Cameron's Aliens, which is something Fox have been threatening for a while. For like, the better part of 5 years, they were like, Neil Blomkamp is going to come and make a new Alien 3, and it's going to be great. We'll just pretend that David Fincher's Alien 3 never actually happened. This really does feel like it's that taken to its logical approach, which is, well, now everybody cares about continuity, so we can't just erase Alien 3. But what we can do is we can tell this story in a way we don't ever have to acknowledge that ever happened or ever is going to happen. And it is full of these like awkward callbacks and references. It is populated by characters who, the line of criticism against Prometheus is that the characters in Prometheus are characters who have never seen a horror film, and so act very stupid when confronted with the elements of a horror film. The problem with this movie is that while these characters have also seemingly never seen a horror movie, they have somehow seen both Alien and Aliens and are willing to like reference it repeatedly in ways that you, the audience, are like, I have seen Alien and Aliens, and I appreciate the reference that these characters are making to the movies that I have seen, even though they were not present and one of them hasn't happened yet. I did like, that is the push and pull with this movie, where I think it is in many ways a beautifully well-made film, but I just wish that there was more substance to it beyond, hey, you guys like Alien movies, right? Question mark.
What were you, Jack?
Sorry.
No, that was.
No,
I mean, we will never stop you from talking, Darren. That is the point of this show, is to wind you up and listen. Which is great. Okay, so what I've seen, like here in the chat, I saw two very important questions that I would like to answer, which is, one, is it worth seeing? And two, how much of the other Alien movies do you need to see before this one? So to answer the second question first, is technically you don't need to see any of the other Alien movies. The snide way to say that is, this is a nice little like slice of every Alien movie in one movie. Which is a very snide way to say that this is a studio-driven franchise film. Is it worth seeing? At the end of the day, I think yes. I paid my own money to see this movie, and I came out, I got my issues with it, but I got a horror, action, hard sci-fi, blue-collar space movie, and I'm okay with that. I have no reverence. I have no like dogma to the Alien franchise. I love all of the Alien movies for very different reasons. But I'm not a part of the cult of Alien. And so for me, it was a little horror, a little action schlock, and a little eye-rolling cringe, and I'm all there for it. The horror I thought was wonderful and beautiful. It was a movie that literally, I watched it in a theater and I was squirming in my seat, and I love that.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth it.
Shit here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's spoiler territory to talk about. We'll get there later. But so yes, at the end of the day, for me, it was worth it. It was It was fun. It was horror. It's worth it for the hell. The first 45 minutes alone. The sequence in which they have to reorient their spaceship to a different docking station and just going through all of the little tweaks and button presses. Like, I would watch a whole movie of just people realigning spaceships to catch debris. Fuck yeah.
Do you guys ever watch a movie and you know it's going to turn into like a horror movie, but you forget? And you're just like, man, I really hope this. Like,
Audition is the big one. Audition is the one where it's like for the first like 90 minutes of that movie, it's a Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks movie, and then it becomes like a Saw movie.
I do every time I rewatch Cloverfield. I know it is a found footage monster movie, but like the first 10 minutes I'm like, man, I hope this couple gets together.
I'm really rooting for
oh yeah, monster. Yeah. It's a monster. No, I thought the opening was really great. I thought the stuff on the planet I thought was gorgeous. I thought that brought the most interesting ideas to the table. Because every alien movie, yes, they're horror sci-fi movies, but even the worst ones, even the ones I don't like it might be sacrilege, but 3 and 4 I do not like. They bring interesting ideas, or they attempt to bring interesting ideas. Like
there it is. Yeah.
They attempt to bring the idea of this, like what would happen if this religion formed around this idea in 3, and then even in like Prometheus is like, what would happen if your whole life was about meeting God
and hated you,
and you met God and he was like, listen, I gave you guys one chance, I sent Jesus, you killed him, and now we're coming for y'all. And I thought this had the ideas at the start. It did kind of lose the ideas once it became an alien movie. But like you guys said, I think it's worth seeing for, I think when Fede Alvarez is allowed to just shoot kind of either atmospheric establishing shots or really tense set pieces. Like the set pieces are great. And we'll get to those in the spoilers. There's a couple of them where like, that was worth it alone. Like the stuff they do with 0G, I'm like, this is cool. I've never seen this before. This is very neat. I know you guys play video games and you guys have played Dead Space, and that is why you put that in here, but it's fine because it's cool. Yeah.
I mean, it's John Carpenter is working on a Halloween video game apparently.
Yeah, there's apparently 2 of them, and they announced one of them that is a one of them is just a
mainly just taking bad cash, smoking a spliff, and so picking up a controller.
Yeah, he does like Dead Space though. Let John Carpenter do a Dead Space movie.
Here's what I will say, and I don't think this is spoiler territory because we've talked a lot about kind of like the like Darren, you said in your piece here, which is like they reference. There is a point in this movie in which a character, while getting rid of an alien creature, says, "Get away from her, you bitch."
Yeah.
I don't think that's a spoiler. If it is, I'm sorry. It is the most eye-rolling piece of cinema you will watch anytime soon. It makes no
Deadpool and Wolverine was out a couple of weeks ago, to be fair.
By the way, that scene made me roll my eyes harder than anything in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Okay.
Just because, at least in Deadpool and Wolverine, there was the context of, we're going to have some shout-outs. Here, there was no context for it.
And the reason I especially didn't like that, aside from everything you're saying of like it just feels like a studio note, is that it took. One of my criticisms of the movie was I didn't like a lot of the cast, and like I think the cast needed 1 or 2 glue guys, like a Paxton or like a Yaphet Kotto or a Harry Dean Stanton, like a couple glue guys. You're like, fuck yeah, I just want to hang out with this person for a little bit. And the only 2 characters
Powell in an alien movie.
Yeah, exactly, just a great glue guy. That being said, I guess the 2 ostensible leads, Kaylee Spaney, who plays Rain, and then David Johnson, who plays Andy, her surrogate brother, who's a synthezoid. What do they call him?
He prefers the term artificial person, another line borrowed from another alien movie.
There you go. I think both of them are wonderful. I think, first off, Kaylee Spaney is like, she's just about to like take off. Like, I'm putting full stock in her after Civil War and Priscilla last year. Like, holy moly. Also, throughout this movie, she's just Ellie from The Last of Us. She even looks like Ellie from The Last of Us Part 2. And it's funny because the Isabella Merced, who plays the pregnant one aboard the ship, is playing Dina, Ellie's paramour in Last of Us Part 2. So whenever they were hanging out, I'm like, is this just The Last of Us? And I think the thing I liked the least was the fact that line was delivered by the two characters in the situation of the two characters I like the most, and especially David, or the Andy, who gets to play two separate versions of the same artificial intelligence.
He's pretty handy with Andy. I mean, the thing with that line is it knocks you out. First of all, it knocks you out in the movie. It reminds you of Aliens, which is like a better movie than most movies ever made. So it's like you're taking a real gambit by doing that. Second of all, it's completely out of character for Andy, the character, to say something like that. He hasn't sworn up until that point. Third of all, like, they haven't talked about the gender of the alien in question, so it's really weird to use an extremely gendered, like, charged slur.
In Aliens, it's the queen alien.
She's
so
laying eggs, and it's a mother versus mother. It's a mother off, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's really strange that, like, and particularly because Andy knows more about the aliens than anybody else at that point, it's really weird that he is like, by the way, I'm going to use a misogynistic slur to refer to this, like, very phallic monster that we're treating here, that we're engaging with here.
Here's the interesting thing, and here's the weird thing, and I don't know if you two had similar experiences. I saw this Sunday night, a mostly full theater, at my local art house cinema, which I love seeing big schlocky movies at my art house cinema. But it was a mostly full theater. When that line was spoken, it got a very positive reaction amongst the crowd going folk. And so while I'm rolling my eyes, I then have to be like, what the fuck are you guys laughing at? Why are you like, they all, ha 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 ha, I know that they all clapped. And so I want to punish, I want to, slap the wrist of whoever put that in the movie, but clearly it was a good note.
Yeah, no, it worked. It worked cynically, and this is the question where it's like, but if you apply that logic, then no movie that ever makes $1 billion gets any criticism whatsoever. Avatar: The Way of Water is the most perfect movie ever made.
Fair.
To be fair.
Big Jim. I don't want to talk about Big Jim. I am deeply sad.
It is an Aliens podcast.
He's only going to make Avatar movies for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
I'm happy. He's done the States some service. He doesn't owe me anything. He should go and be happy. Be happy, Jim.
He's happy. I'm happy. He's happy. I'm happy he gets to explore every element in a new movie. But I just want another True Lies. Why can't we get 5
really
True
weird,
Lies?
most divorced movie ever, apart from The Abyss, which is somehow the even more divorced movie ever.
Or Temple of Doom. We don't get enough divorce movies. We get like Past Lives where it's like, is everything okay? And Challengers, where it's like, what's going on,
Challengers,
yeah. Do you guys want to talk? I feel like we're kind of circling drain of spoilers. Can we just go to spoilers? I mean, do I have to, do you have any last non-spoiler thoughts before?
So what we talked about earlier is kind of like viewing this as a sci-fi movie versus an alien movie. And I guess part of my thought process here was trying to imagine watching this movie with absolutely zero prior knowledge of any other alien movie. And I think, and obviously that's really hard for me because I've seen all the alien movies and enjoy them to varying degrees. But I think if I were to see this in a vacuum, not knowing it was part of a greater franchise, I would come away thinking, well, it had some horror elements. It had some action-y, schlocky elements. So it was a little uneven, but overall, I think I had a good time. And I feel like that's how I came out of the movie in general. It's like, yeah, it's tonally a little wibble wobble, but I'm okay with that because I like horror and I like action schlock. So,
yeah. I mean, I do think it is worth kind of shouting out, like, we were quite critical of like Deadpool and Wolverine, and I think this is better than Deadpool and Wolverine because with all due respect to like Sean Levy as a filmmaker, I think that Alvarez is a much stronger visual and aesthetic stylist. And I do think you made the point, Jack, earlier, this is an uncomfortable movie, and like that is the thing that Alvarez does, where like for better and for worse, and three guys on a podcast are not the people to have this conversation, but Alvarez is a director who does not like squirm away from the depictions of sexual violence on screen. He kept that infamous scene in the Evil Dead remake, despite the fact that Sam Raimi's like, if I could make one change to the Evil Dead, it would be to remove that one scene. And anybody who has seen Don't Breathe will be triggered by the phrase turkey baster. So like, he is a director who is not afraid to make the audience kind of cross their legs. And I do like the face huggers here are more graphic than they have ever been at any other point. The birth metaphor is more graphic than it has ever been at any point in the franchise history. And I do think that is commendable. But I do also, on the other hand, have the dueling voice in my head that goes, the point of a horror movie is to make me uncomfortable and to make me uneasy and to make me unsettled.
Mm-hmm.
Filling it full of things that I recognize and even things that I love, because I do love Alien and I do love Aliens and I even love Alien 3 for my sins and kind of love Prometheus and also kind of love Covenant. But like, I love this stuff, but putting stuff that I recognize in here so that I can clap and cheer and raise my fist in the air triumphantly makes it harder for me to be unsettled. Because like, without getting into spoilers, during the climax of this, when something horrific is happening on screen, I'm Leo pointing at the screen and going, that's from Redacted. And like, it takes me out of the movie and makes it harder for the movie to scare me. But I think somebody in the comments was saying, like, do you recommend it? And I think I'm a bit colder than you, Jack, but I think if you are going to see it at any point, see it in a cinema with a top-end sound system and a top-end visual system. I think it looks and sounds incredible. I honestly think it does new things with space that I haven't seen in a mainstream blockbuster, which makes me sound like an idiot of a film critic. They're doing great things with space. It's the new time. It's the new time. Space is the new time. But they are doing kind of really interesting things with the use of like the void and blackness and light in space, which I think is well worth seeing. And if you are going to see it in a cinema with a top end visual audio visual system. That would be my kind of recommendation.
Yeah, I think this is a good. Which is funny because this was originally going to launch on Hulu, correct?
Yeah, that was the original plan for both the Alien and Predator franchises.
Yeah,
and I do like to think that Prey.
Yeah, which I wish I could have seen in theaters because that was great.
The Irish Times 5th favorite movie of 20 whatever year it was released, which is incredible.
Well done, Ireland. Was that just you, or was that like?
There were a group of us involved in that effort.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I think by and large a lot of the Fox properties have been handled relatively well under Disney between this, Prey, The First Omen, and Apes. The last Apes movie, I thought was pretty good. Not as strong as the previous two Apes movies, but pretty good.
But also, even like 20th Century have done really great work with original films. Like they're going straight to streaming, but like 20th Century are doing things like Rosalind. They're doing stuff like even say The Princess. They're doing The Boston Strangler. Like they're making like Barbarian was a 20th Century's production as well. No One Will Save You. Like to give credit where it's due.
That was great.
Like the 20th Century shingle under Disney is arguably the most interesting production arm they have. And I think that like if this is as far as the nostalgia goes there, I'll maybe allow it. Like as long as like the next Predator movie, the only real reference is like if it bleeds, we can kill it. You can get that's the one line that a character's allowed because that's a natural thing to say. If you're facing an unstoppable killing machine and you discover blood, you're like, well, it bleeds, it can be killed.
Yeah,
that's fairly logical. It's not like get away from her, you bitch, which is a very specific thing to say to a very specific character in a very specific situation.
Yeah.
But like. I'm willing to accept this as the cost of Rosalind, as the cost of Barbarian, as the cost of Prey.
Ooh, that's a very interesting way to think about it.
I like that. It's all.
I really like your point, Darren. I just just to kind of highlight it a little bit about the inverse use of nostalgia in a horror property. I think that was an incredibly well put. Just saying like, oh, how can I be scared of something that I have fond memories of? So basically just wanted to highlight that for anyone who missed that a few moments ago.
Yeah, and it does. I guess I think this is a good because tying in with that, I think we can go full spoilers now. So
full spoilers,
everybody warning.
Warning. If you're
we're all waving. So if you're speeding through the video, you can figure out something's happening.
Particular spoilers. You can
Thank you, Eric.
I'll put timestamps in the comments so that at the end when we talk about the super chats and everything or other stuff, you can go there. But I think part of Darren what you were saying of I don't know if it's exactly what you were referencing, but how certain things will take you out of tense moments it was continuing to go back to Ian Holm.
Yeah.
Every time fake ass Ian Holm popped up, I just don't think that ever looks good. I don't think it looked good, and it didn't look good with either character in Rogue One. It doesn't look good in Mando. It didn't look de-aging. Doesn't look good in The Irishman, and I love Martin Scorsese. Doesn't look good in Dial of Destiny. Like de-aging a living person doesn't look good, and then doing it to someone who passed away feels ghoulish. When you could have cast anyone as the Sith. You could have had the actor who plays Andy play him. You could have had at least Lance
Michael
Hendrickson's
Fassbender
alive.
on it. You could have Dan Stevens show up.
Yeah,
Dan Stevens is like overdue to play an alien or an android in an alien movie.
He'll be in Noah Hawley's series.
The most
Basically, well, he does in Cuckoo. Sorry, Jack.
Oh no, that's all right. I was going to say the most insulting part about that, as someone who has for years been vocally against puppeting corpses, because again, that's what they did here. The character that he is playing is someone who is like half melted, and like they are literally plugging into a device to puppet them. It could have been anything. It could have been an actual puppet that just kind of looked like Ian Holmes.
Alien 3, like, and I know Marty doesn't like Alien 3, and part of the reason, like, I like Alien 3, and part of the reason I like Alien 3 is because it does the exact opposite of this, where, like, this movie's like, hey, remember all the cool stuff from James Cameron's Aliens and how great that made you feel? Well, here's more of it. Alien 3, I kind of love for being like, remember all the cool stuff you loved about James Cameron's Aliens? Well, it's dead.
They died before the movie even starts, including the child.
And the 8-year-old child. And by the way, in case you're worried that we're just doing a fake out here, we're gonna have a graphic autopsy scene like 10 minutes in on the 8-year-old child, so that you know she's definitely not coming back.
Is everything all right at home?
But like to just because you mentioned the idea of like puppeting the dead, there's that moment in that where they revive Bishop, and he is that Bishop on the table is voiced by Lance Henriksen, obviously, but it is a puppet. And they talk about how difficult it is to synchronize. Like, half his face is missing, so they only have to synchronize half of his lips. But like, it still looks great even today. And it's like I know that gets around the question of like just using Holmes's likeness in general and deep faking his voice or whatever. But like, I do look at that practical effect of a puppet, and like so much of the rest of the movie is practical. Like I love that they did so many practical aliens. I love that they built sets and filled them with smoke. There is a tactility to this movie that is genuinely wonderful. Like, this is the thing where it's like, as much as I'm criticizing this movie, there are parts of it that I love, and there is parts of it where I'm like, this could be the best alien movie since Aliens, if it held back in some very key ways. It's like 5 lines and Ian Holm. The problem is that Ian Holm is all over this movie. I'm gonna disconnect and reconnect my mic.
Yeah, do a little.
Oh yeah, and it's like, you know, that this is a clear case in which they could have very easily, you know, built a very nice looking puppet and have it fit within the world. They could have found a voice impressionist, you know, hire a real person, and even, you know, put some digital effects on the voice impressionist, and it would have fit in seamlessly. Yet for some reason, whether it be, you know, nostalgia baiting, whether it be, you know, one of the executives has a stock in an AI corporation, I don't know why. This to me, it was one of the silliest puppet a corpse choices I have come across.
And it's not just a single shot; they keep going back to shots.
Yeah.
Like he's talking with the characters throughout the rest of the film. Yeah.
He's the movie's villain. He's basically like the Paul Reiser of this movie.
Yeah.
All movie villains are the Paul Reiser of a movie. Just mad about you. Absolutely terrible.
Have you seen that Paul Reiser came back to Marvel? Oh, I'm very crackly.
Now you're crackling and cutting out, Darren. I do apologize.
The big two.
Now you're the big two.
Yeah, maybe try the butt of the cord again. The cord butt.
The cord butt.
Yeah, the cord butt. Yeah, so it's also frustrating because it's not like there's only one model of synthetic life in the universe, because clearly we have Andy in the movie, who is another. And clearly throughout the franchise, we have characters like Winona Ryder and Lance Hendrickson and Michael Fassbender. So it's not like it's just all robots are played by, or they have one make and model and that's it, because that wouldn't have been a spoiler to anyone in Alien 1. They would have been like, you just look like all those robots. Why? You're clearly a robot. And it just seems like a self-own, almost like a fumble on their part that they didn't need to do.
Yeah.
Darren, you just
by the way, Paul Reiser. Yeah, Paul Reiser just wrote an Alien comic for Marvel, which I find amazing. And it's the
out of
most Paul
town.
Reiser comic. Heard about this? What if Carter Burke had lived? Written by Paul Reiser, which is just great. It's like we went to Paul Reiser and we're like, "Do you have any pitches?" He's like, "One, hear me out. One way to make aliens better. What if, and hear me out here, Carter Burke lived."
It's the only thing. Every kid finished watching Aliens, and they were like, "Why is Carter Burke not alive? Why doesn't the coward get to live?"
I mean, Hudson, Vasquez, Drake, fuck them all.
Yeah,
Burke,
exactly.
Yeah. What I will say is, Darren, unfortunately, your microphone is still rather crackly. So I do not know. We did have this fixed before the podcast started, so I do apologize.
It is giving a crackle.
Oh my lord!
In terms of Darren's just going. This is why you watch the video. Darren's. I don't know what's going on here, but I love it. In terms of other spoilery stuff, I wanted to touch on. I mentioned specifically a couple of the set pieces that I really liked, and I wanted to shout out two of them. First off, this might have the new belt for an alien movie that deals with acid. Like the way this movie deals with the acid blood of the aliens in two separate scenes is so cool. And one is when the acid drips on the guy and kills him, and he's kind of just down there, and it's just like gnawing away at him.
And by the way, like going back to the horrific and wonderful sexual metaphors, it is just a vagina dripping toxic fluid on someone who has been a real dickhead this entire film.
Absolutely has it.
So a clear and present vagina just killing a man, and that's
my favorite Harrison Ford movie. I don't think we can hear you at all, Darren. No, you now have zero audio. I do, and the other acid scene, the 0G scene, when they're in the end of the airlock, and they turn off the gravity, and so everything's floating, and then they shoot all the aliens, and so all the aliens are dead, but there's floating acid everywhere. And so Rain has to kind of float her way, like balletically, down the hallway, avoiding the acid and maneuvering her body in order to get to the other side without getting burnt. I thought was just deeply cool. And that was immediately followed up by that stairwell or the elevator shaft set piece, which I also thought was cool, which again sadly ends with the get away from her, you bitch line, which I was like, you just kind of you like put like a little shit candle on top of like a very nice birthday cake here.
And that to me was like the most frustrating part of a lot of the movie, which is it did have really well thought out set pieces. And one of the set pieces is the clear delineation, is the like straight line between horror and action schlock, which I thought was really funny, which is like, oh, we have to make it one of the. Oh, hello. We have to make it through this hallway. We have to make it through this hallway, and we have to be very quiet. Like here's the horror premise, the wonderful tension buildup. We can't be very loud, but noises are happening. And then all of a sudden, that breaks, and it's run. And from then on out until the end of the movie, it's an action schlock movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even the new. Every alien movie kind of introduces a new twist on the xenomorph formula, right?
Yeah.
Of like, oh, what are we gonna do here? And it ends up being sort of like a mix between the engineers of Prometheus and the this is my
baby
child.
alien from Resurrection.
Look, you're back. You sound great.
Am I back? All right, I'm back, baby.
Yeah, you're back. You sound great.
Yeah, you sound beautiful.
So the kind of the new quote unquote new alien at the end is it is a gestated baby that has been, and its mother has been injected herself with, I think, a variant of the goo from Prometheus. Is that right? Like
we get so deep into the lore on this. Like, that is the thing where it's like the movie starts as a simple alien movie, which is there's a bunch of people in space. They did something they're not supposed to, and now they're going to get brutally murdered. And the climax is like, by the way, in case you're curious, the villain from Alien used the goo from Prometheus to make the villain from Alien Resurrection again. It's such a strange choice.
That was played by an actor. I saw it, like just a very tall, very skinny man.
Yeah,
which was cool. That having that sort of haunting figure come and have it not be like a crappy CG alien. Like, was it Alien 3 or Resurrection that had the crappy CG aliens? Both.
Alien 3 had the motoscoped aliens, so they weren't CGI, but they were puppeted in, so they have the thick black lines around them.
Oh, that might be one.
And they look
it's not
not
clear
great,
they're not in the frame. Yeah.
Resurrection had some beautiful puppets. Beautiful and horrible puppets. If you're into beautiful and horrible puppets, Um, but no, I thought like that. I really enjoyed that final sequence. Obviously, yes, it was just, oh, here's the part of Alien Resurrection that we have to slot into this movie to fill our nostalgia quota, because we have to be equally nostalgic for every Alien film. But I thought it was nice. I thought it was creepy. The birthing sequence, that thing slithering around and quite literally devouring its mother. It's beautiful. It's beautiful if you're into horror, which I am.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
I mean, if you're
really,
making an sorry, if
go
you're
ahead.
making an argument, like it is part of like a wave of like post Dodds horror, like a wave of like there's a recent wave of like obviously the Alien movies have always been about reproductive horror, but it's very interesting that this one is particularly fascinating with reproductive horror as it relates to women. Like the first victim of the facehugger is the pilot of the ship, for example, and obviously the pregnant woman is like a huge smoking gun. This is the first time a pregnant woman has been subject to this, unless we count the birthing scene in Prometheus, but that's not a normal fetus. But the idea of like having a pregnant woman who is forced to give birth and it birthing this monstrous man that basically feeds on her, but it ties into like you think of like, and again, sorry, spoiler zone for all movies, I guess, but think of like recently like the first Omen, for example. Think recently of Cuckoo. Think of Immaculate. There is this interesting wave of like movies now in 2024, 2 years after the Supreme Court basically said women have no control over their own bodies. I think it is very telling that like you get a wave of horror movies after that, which are like, yeah, women don't get any control over their own bodies, and it's graphic and it's monstrous and it's horrific and it's basically sexual assault in this, wholesome way, which is it's really fascinating, and I do like that aspect of the movie.
Yeah. And like that's to me, that's what eventually like leads me to, generally speaking, enjoying the movie. Obviously, a ton of eye roll parts of the movie, but it's like the things they did well. I think they did so well, including that final scene. It was tension filled. It was beautiful. And I really liked that big creepy alien. I know I've seen a lot online about like the logistics of how we got from Prometheus alien to xenomorph, from xenomorph back to like can we just talk about the logistics of alien biology? And it's like, fuck no, we don't care.
Yeah, because like the alien in Prometheus at the end is like, all right, we took the goo, we made the woman drink the goo.
Yeah.
Or no, we made the man drink the goo, and then he had sex
And then
with
he got the woman pregnant.
and she got pregnant, and then she got the baby out of her, and then the baby attacked the engineer, and the baby put a baby inside the engineer, and then that baby was like a proto-xenomorph.
Right.
Like,
I do love, by the way, that like for all that Prometheus is going to go to prequel to Alien, it's full of all those convoluted steps that go absolutely nowhere near Alien. Like, like they have to go to like Covenant to be like, okay, we've got the xenomorph, we promise. Because like I also do love
just
that like
want to have
Ridley
Michael
Scott fucking
Fassbender
hates
kiss
the
himself.
xenomorphs. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one thing.
I'll do
Not
the
enough
fingering.
characters kiss themselves.
I'll do the fingering.
Yes.
What did you guys think of the human characters in the movie? Like, did any of them leave an impression on you? Did Rain or Andy the Android?
Okay. Rain was no, they're weak. They were all very weak characters. Like what they were is horror movie characters. They were stock. Like, okay, Rain is the final girl. What do they call that? Like the one who survives. Like, okay,
the final girl. Yeah.
Rain's the final girl. Okay, this person is definitely fodder. This person is definitely fodder. This person, like Rain's very best friend, the one who got around, like, okay, maybe he'll make it to the end. Like he's the maybe. But no, they're all stock horror movie characters, and to me, none of them, besides the pilot, who was the first to go, made a big impression on me. And I only liked the pilot because I like technical space shit.
When she started rotating the ship to bring it into docking bay, Jack was like, "Yeah, I'm in with this character."
I like seeing someone who's good at their
5
job.
movies with this. Yeah.
The sequence where she had to like catch the pod in space, and you just see her like making micro adjustments on the spaceship in order to perfectly align the ship to catch the pod. That's all I want. That's all I want in every movie. I fucking love that.
Like, I like the cast. I think the cast is charismatic. I'm seeing a lot of people being like, this cast is terrible. They're young actors. Like they're they're given these roles. I think that Spani is going to be, as you said, a star based off like Priscilla, based off Civil War, based off this. But I do, and obviously Andy and David Janssen are like fantastic.
Yeah.
But I do think the rest of the characters are just generic, and I think they're generic in a way that like most of the other Alien casts aren't. Where like obviously in Alien you have the space truckers like Harry Dean Stanton, Yaphet Kotto, Tom Skerritt, Ian Holm, John Hurt. Like once in a generation do you get that many that guys in a movie together. The Marines in Aliens are incredibly well drawn. Again, that's like Cameron as like, for all we mock Cameron for being like a straight down the middle kind of dad filmmaker, all those characters are archetypes and he knows exactly who they are and he casts them phenomenally. And so you know the difference between Vasquez and Hudson and Hicks. So you're following them through, and obviously Burke, everyone's favorite Burke, kids' favorite action figure, Carter Burke. And then even in Alien 3, where like the point of Alien 3 is like you take these pasty 30-something British actors and shave all their heads so they're all functionally indistinguishable from one another. You still have like Charles Dance and Charles Dutton there, and obviously Sigourney Weaver. And you do even get this, like, you care for Morse by the end of that movie, and you like Pete Postlethwaite in the 3 lines Pete Postlethwaite gets to deliver.
Yeah.
And even like Resurrection, where Joss Whedon's like, hey, I don't know about making an alien movie, but I have a pretty cool idea for a show about a bunch of space rogues who are morally ambiguous. Maybe I could just work that into a rough draft of this alien script. And you're like, okay, yeah, Ron Perlman as like Proto Jane is not a bad hook for an alien cast. Whereas here you're in like the Alien versus Predator stage, where you're like, none of these characters are functionally distinguishable from one another, except for the order in which they're going to die is the amount that they are developed.
And one is just weirdly mean. And then they're like, oh no, it's because his a robot made a call to leave his mom in a mine. And I'm like, oh, okay, get over it.
Right. Well, and it's like, I do wonder if
like,
some of. Oh, go ahead, Darren. If you were, I was going to kind of shift off a little bit. So if you want to continue on this line for a little bit.
No, but just on like the dead woman in the mine story, right? This is the thing where this movie keeps gesturing at ideas which are really interesting and would make a great aliens movie. Like the idea Fede Alvarez has said, like, this is a metaphor for, because he's a Uruguayan filmmaker. He said, like, this is a metaphor for growing up in the third world, where you are just harvesting materials for the first world to exploit. And it's like, that is kind of there, as you said, in the opening scene where they just up the quota so you can't leave. But it's like, it's not really there because like they just go and do an alien movie. It's like, why not release the alien in the mines and just see what happens there and kind of explore that idea? Why not have them mining something that Romulus needs and have that be the plot of the movie or something like that? And then there's another one, like you mentioned, the idea of like the synthetic deciding that like one of the asshole character's mother had to die. That is something that comes up a couple of times early in the movie with Andy. When Andy like has to make a decision in a moment about like whether to close a door or whether to open a door, and he has to like ignore the emotional opinions of the characters around them. And that's a really interesting dynamic in a horror movie, because horror movies are like emotional and instinctive, and Andy is behaving in a way that feels like Ridley Scott whispering in Fede Alvarez's ear saying, you saw the fucking reviews of Prometheus, right? Andy is behaving like everybody on the internet thinks every character in Prometheus should have behaved, which is like to be just this coldly rational character who has no emotions or feelings whatsoever and makes like the smart decision that doesn't progress the movie in any meaningful way. And it's also kind of monstrous if you think about it. But it's like, that's an interesting angle, that idea of like utilitarianism, the idea that sometimes the decision you make to save more lives can somehow be more monstrous than a decision to save the life that's immediately in front of you. But the movie does not do anything with that idea once it's established. There's a whole bunch of things like that, sorry. A bunch of
little threads like that. I noticed. I'm curious if like how many sort of revisions this script went through, and whether, like, part of me was thinking before that at some point they were going to announce that Rain was Ripley's daughter.
Oh god!
Like age-wise,
Alien Isolation. I don't even play video games. That's Alien.
Yeah,
Isolation,
so Alien
right?
Isolation. So, like, in a deleted scene, I think they mentioned, or no, does in any of the actual scenes do they mention that Ripley has a daughter back home?
They do, yeah. In the first one, it's on her file, and in the second one, she actually appears, or she appears as in she's dead.
Okay, yeah.
Like there's a moment in like the director's cut. Where Carter Burke is like, by the way, we found your daughter, and she's like, yay, and oh, by the way, she's dead.
Should have led with that part.
Good news, bad news.
Shouldn't have done a pregnant pause halfway through this. So part of me with the time wise, I would have been like, oh, maybe she was a little kid and now she's grown up because this is in between the other movies, and so I don't know if that was ever a thing that they were gonna do or not, but But yeah, where were you going to take us, Jack?
I was going to take us to a slightly tangential, which is like, we were talking about the characters of the earlier Alien movies and how they stand out. And what I'm wondering is how much of that is the characters and how much of that is the character actors. And this is something that comes up a lot in modern movies or just in modern Hollywood, which is there aren't that many that guys anymore. There aren't any character actors or new character actors sprouting up, though I see Darren's face lighting up about to say,
I'm just saying, like, put Bill Camp in an Alien movie. Just like, I know he's not a spring chicken. He's like 60 years old.
Have him be one of these 20-year-old kids.
Yeah, that's it. Like, it's 5 kids and Bill Camp.
He was so good in Presumed Innocent. Oh my God, he's so good.
He's so good. Oh no, I just don't know. Oh, now
do we just not make character actors anymore?
Yeah,
do we just not make character actors? Because every kid wants to grow up to be the leading star.
No, the problem is that we started letting like handsome people think they were character actors. So like you started letting like Matthew McConaughey and like Colin Farrell like do stuff in fat suits and in makeup, which makes it harder to like actually cast like fat, non-conventionally Hollywood attractive people in those roles. So you don't really grow into them. So like I guess like Colin Farrell in penguin makeup is maybe one of the cast members of like the character actor version of this movie.
Or any of those lists you see of like everyone's attracted to these rat boys. And it's like the guy from The Bear and it's Barry Keoghan. It's like, and I'm like, they're just handsome. Stop calling them rat boys.
Why aren't there any conventionally attractive people, says this article with the photo of the 3 people from Challengers at the top.
Right. With a photo of like shirtless Adam Driver, who's like, that is a fucking handsome man.
Rat boy question mark. I'm like, stop calling them rat boys.
But like to me, that's a huge thing where it's like the cast is very homogenous, very, Abercrombie and Fitch, if that is still a reference that the youngs understand, where it's like these are all generically attractive people who kind of, have a similar look to them, which I guess would be explainable within the universe, but like no one stands out. No one is a big enough presence to where I wonder if like the characters from the earlier Alien movies came from the script or it came from those actors wanting to give a little zhuzh to their characters.
Yeah. Yeah, and like
or Alien 3, where you just lock them on a set for like 4 months and they have nothing to do but think about their characters
and learn how to shoot a basket from behind your head. Just throw a ball behind your head. And yeah, it is funny because all the prior 6 Alien movies, again, not 8, the prior 6 Alien movies, all of their casts have like a ton of like, oh shit, it's that guy, or like yes, like you're chewing up the scene, and this movie just didn't have it. Like again, David Johnson as Andy and Kayla Spaney as Rain, I think are both great, but that's the main character and I think mostly David Johnson's great because he plays like kind of the 2 halves of the, he plays the two different
and it's
robots.
Like so many gold stars to David Johnson. It's just like that, like he is to me is the standout of the movie. Like if there was one character that I wanted to survive till the end, it was him, in both versions, by the way, in both good android or evil android. I just want to see what this fucker does.
I'm gonna jump to some super chats because a lot of them I want to jam through. Oh my God, you got the popcorn bucket!
I got a popcorn bucket, and I'm really disappointed because it's not at all. It's like the Alien popcorn bucket should be more sexual than the Deadpool and Wolverine popcorn bucket, but somehow it's not.
Or the Dune worm.
It's even less
the Dune popcorn
than the Dune
bucket.
one.
Yeah, which is very strange. I feel like I got you.
Okay, we're gonna jam through some of these super chats. Darren, of course, whenever you need to leave, just let us know. But or just leave. You don't have to let us know. You just fucking
out.
Zamp out. Quintuple A, thank you so much for the $5 dono. What is this week's To Be Fair? Tubi, step up and sponsor the segment, you cowards. Do you have a Tubi recommendation for us, Jack?
Not a Tubi recommendation. The only other movie I watched 2 other movies last week. One was a rewatch of The Ritual, but I watched it with my kids. Because they really like that kind of atmospheric horror, and it's like, are we all sleeping on The Ritual? Because
it was great.
It fucking rips. Watching it a second time.
The Raphael Spall one about the guys who wander up into the
don't go into the woods.
And
Yeah.
like it has a really great scene in a supermarket that's also a forest.
Yes, yeah, that's such a good
Exactly.
scene.
That's it. It is a Netflix original horror movie. I watched it when Nick and Jesse came to stay at my house and we filmed the Animal Well documentary. I liked it so much. I told my kids and I was like, let's watch it. And I watched it with the kids. They loved it. It was great.
There you go.
But I also watched Clifford, the Martin Short, Charles Grodin movie in my art house cinema movie theater because they were showing it. And goddamn, what a masterpiece.
That's not the dog?
Not the dog. Clifford,
Okay, the pictures of the dog.
No. This is
the one where Martin Short in just like in a schoolboy uniform, no makeup, occasionally some trick photography, but like no attempt to make him seem like anything less
Bill
than
Camp
I'm guessing a
could have been one of
38-year-old
the
man.
kids in this movie.
Yes, this is Martin Short as a full-ass adult playing a 10-year-old child. Oh, there it is. Charles Grodin, Mary Steenburgen, played at my local theater, and it was a delight to watch that with a crowd. So that was my to-be recommendation is go find a copy of Clifford and watch that.
Dude, do you have a recommendation of the week? It's not Borderlands because I watched your Borderlands backdrop that just went up, which is excellent. Everyone should watch, but it doesn't seem like it's your recommendation.
Doesn't really seem the takeaway. I actually will say I love Trap. I really love Trap.
So did I. I really enjoyed it.
Fell in love. Like I was like peak dad Shyamalan, because the big thing with Shyamalan is you're never entirely sure how serious he is or how goofy he is, and this is kind of like the right level of being serious about the right stuff, which is man, does that man love his daughters?
Really does.
But also being like camp about the stuff that he should be camp about, which is, isn't it fun to make a serial killer movie about how insane it would be to be trapped at a Taylor Swift concert?
Yeah.
And it's just the right level of energy between those two. It's a real, can a girl dad like be a dad and have a hobby at the same time? Is basically what the movie's about.
We call it a hobby.
Such
He locks people in his basement and kills them. There's better hobby.
I mean, he does. But this is Shyamalan saying, I was reading my kids' bedtime stories like The Lady in the Water and making The Last Airbender for them and making After Earth for them. But I was also like throwing people into lawnmowers in The Happening at the same time. So it creates this sense of a schism in a man where it's like, am I really a healthy dad if I'm like kissing my daughters goodnight and then going off to throw Mark Wahlberg into a blender? Or are you the best dad if that's what your job is?
Let me also say, Josh Hartnett, I'm glad to have you back. Between Oppenheimer and the Guy Ritchie movies, I'm glad to have you back, Josh Hartnett. You're big, you're tall, you're handsome, and I like you.
There's a moment in this movie where like he has kept the shirt on for the entire movie, and you're getting towards the end, and he just takes the shirt off just because it's like, look, you guys have been in the theater for at this stage, like 80 minutes, 90 minutes. You deserve this as much as anybody else. He just takes off his shirt and eats some pie, and I'm like, wow.
Remember when he was in the one movie called 30 Days a Night about vampires, and the other movie called 30 Days a Night about not cranking it for a month? That was wild.
Yeah, Lent, wasn't it? Like, isn't it like wanky? Yeah, no, not Lent.
Yeah, which that movie's amazing because I saw that, and then I moved to San Francisco, and then that movie was just filmed in the neighborhood I lived in, and so like I would do my laundry at the laundromat where he would go and think about not being able to nut. It was great. 40 Days and 40 Nights. Sorry. No, wasn't that the one with Harrison Ford?
No, that's 7 Days and 7 Nights. That's with Anne Hesh and David Schwimmer. It's
you're
like,
talking about like the romantic comedy
6 Days, 7. Yeah, 6 Days, 7 Nights.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zoe Deschanel.
No, that's 500 Days of Summer.
That's fine.
We need the day cinematic universe.
Yeah. The 6 Days, 7 Nights is where Anne Hesh has to make the very tough choice between, on the one hand, Harrison Ford, and on the other hand, David Schwimmer. The choice that every 90s woman faced. It was a toughie.
Are you a Han or a Ross? Chandler? I don't know which one he is. I've never watched Friends. Is he Ross?
He's a Ross.
He was Ross. Okay. He was Ross.
But he's Chandler too, right?
No, Chandler.
No, that's Matthew Perry.
Why would I say he's Chandler too? Like, there's clearly they're two different characters.
You are talking about the character Mrs. Chandler Bong, and that is Matthew Perry. That is a Friends reference. It's all my friends' heads out there.
Love the idea that, like, for years, Marty, having never watched Friends, just assumed it was a high-concept TV show where all 6 were played by David Schwimmer.
I thought it was amazing. I saw him in Band of Brothers, and I'm like, you're going places, my friend. Pattern Pike with a $5 dono. Thank you so much. Just curious, how much Aliens franchise would you say someone needs to see to have gotten this movie? I think you kind of alluded to that earlier, Jack. I think you're fine, honestly. Like, having literally just rewatched all the Alien movies, the science is kind of gobbledygook in them, and the timeline's kind of gobbledygook, and like, in a way that I'm totally fine with. So, I think the only things you won't get are the references that kind of made us roll our eyes.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll enjoy it more.
Better if you don't watch all the Aliens movies beforehand.
Yeah.
You just think that there's maybe a line that doesn't land here, and that's not the worst thing in the world.
Exactly.
That was a placeholder. They obviously didn't place that placeholder.
You also won't have the complaints we have of every other movie has more interesting casts of like, where's Charles Dance and Yaphet Kotto and Danny McBride?
Yeah.
Where's Idris Elba and Charlize Theron and that weird like little Scottish dude who was in everything for a little while.
He was the guy. He was like a bad guy in Mission Impossible, right?
5.
Yeah. King and Commoner, thank you so much for a $5 dono. We need more characters quoting lines from other movies and a voice that says, "Why am I saying this?"
That was the thing about the line delivery too. It's almost like Andy the character realized he was in a movie and looked directly at the camera to be like, "Is that really the line?" But they used it.
They used the take where Debbie Hansen was like, "Really?"
I'm trying to think. Is there a version of this I like in a movie?
I think if it bleeds, you can kill. If it bleeds, we can kill it. Kind of works in Prey.
Yeah, I agree that works in Prey. Like characters.
I mean, you didn't love that bit in the Fantastic where they explained that it's clobbering time was what the Thing's brother used to shout before engaging in domestic abuse of him.
Yeah, no, I didn't actually. There's a lot of things I didn't like about the movie, including all of it.
What was the line at the very end of that? Where the Thing was just like, there's 4 of us and we're fantastic.
And then Miles Teller's like, what is that?
Say that again. But no, I don't know if it has ever. Or okay, here's
Star Wars lines that echo, right? That I don't mind.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I don't mind that. Right?
What about Endgame? On your left, Avengers Assemble.
I could do this all day. All day.
Oh yeah, the on your left thing is really good. I think.
Like that whole
sequence. That's a character moment between the two of them. Like that.
Yeah, because the two of them had it was the same 2 characters.
Yeah, and I could do this all day. That kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But in again, like this is the thing. It's the same character repeating the line. It's like the Schwarzenegger saying, "I'll be back." Because that's one of the things when I mention this to people, they're like, "But you don't mind when Schwarzenegger says I'll be back?" And it's like, yes, because he is the character who says that.
Yeah.
Like
we have our own catchphrases. We're allowed to say those.
He is also a robot with a very limited like dialogue setting, to be fair, as well. Both and an actor with a very limited dialogue range when he was making those movies. So like it's different than I imagine this character has watched the movie and is repeating.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? Like you almost want him to turn around and be like they said in that movie.
The one we all saw. Pure Pyro with a €2 dono. Thank you so much. Opinions on House with a Clock in its walls. I think it's Eli Roth's best movie, which isn't saying a lot.
Maybe his second best. I think Thanksgiving is slightly better. But I don't think any of them are great.
No.
Thanksgiving's pretty good. And it's primarily driven by turkey puns. So I like that. It had me from the outset where like the killer commits the bit, which I love in a slasher movie when he's like, no, I am actually going to literally oven bake one of the characters alive because it's a Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, Clock in the Wall is fine, which makes it, as you said, top tier Roth.
That being said, it having Jack Black and Kate Blanchett in it led directly to Borderlands.
And Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah, what's going on there?
No, it's fine. Like especially if you have kids who are into like I watched it with my kids when they were younger, and it's like, oh yeah, this is a perfect like intro into kind of spooky or creepier movie. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm always going to go to bat for entry level horror.
Yeah. Like I'm looking right now, it's 65% at Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah.
That's probably the highest ranked Eli Roth film. Yeah. I think Thanksgiving might be higher, but
it's funny. I didn't realize
critics didn't really turn out for Hostel 2.
No. I didn't realize it was written by Eric Kripke, the boys man
guy,
the boys man.
Yeah,
boys man.
I mean, Borderlands was technically written by Craig Mason, to be fair.
But what do you?
The Last of Us guy and the Hangover 3 guy. Yeah.
I don't know why you add the Hangover 3. That doesn't help. You could say The Last of Us and Chernobyl, but you're like, oh no, and the superhero movie or whatever. Didn't he do some of those shitty like scary movie-esque movies? Not great. You know what? You're getting a paycheck. I'll write a piece of shit for a paycheck. That sounds great. Lamb Slaughter with a £5 dono. Thank you so much. Seeing it soon, but was getting Force Awakens vibes from Romulus. Disney playing it safe, make it look like the originals, and ignore the prequels.
But they don't ignore the prequels, to be fair. I was very like on one point I was really frustrated at the amount of references to Prometheus in this movie as somebody who is the rare person who loves Prometheus. But I also did kind of admire we're doing even the crap stuff. Again, this is the thing with modern franchising where even the stuff that fans didn't like in quotes is canon, and it's also crucially part of the collector's set that is available on Disney Plus to stream right now. So you have this incentive to like fold in things that fans complained about and make it part of the movie. The obvious example is like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, where everybody hated that version of Spider-Man when those movies are coming out, but now, well, you got to watch them on Netflix or wherever it is.
Yeah.
Like obviously like Deadpool and Wolverine. I mean, nobody was aching for more Tyler Mane Sabretooth, but here we are.
Yeah.
Like even the bad stuff gets folded in and kind of embraced and endorsed and becomes part of the franchise. So like even like Prometheus ends up being weirdly essential to this movie that's like, hey, you guys love Alien and Aliens. Well, I guess you love Prometheus too.
You better love them all.
Sprinkle. It's a sprinkle of Prometheus.
Yeah, just a dab. Clever Lee with a $5 dono. Thank you so much. Belated sequels like this that always treat the original film like sacred text that can only be referenced, copied, and never engaged with are so boring.
Ooh.
Yeah.
100. Like, first of all, Lee, I think I will always just agree with whatever you say because I value your opinion in most things. But that, like, to me, it's something that we dealt with a lot when we talk about like kind of the Star Wars sequels and whatnot, where it's like it's a very limited universe, and it's almost the same with Aliens now. Where like we could have these, we've tried to have these marvelous stories that expand the universe. What if an alien is here? What if an alien is here? This really could have been a very simple, like, oh, we got a little heist adventure, but an alien's there. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's just a little
like Prey was for Predators.
Yeah.
Like Prey was for Predators, exactly. But unfortunately, that went directly to streaming and kind of fizzled numbers wise, right? And so it's a very narrow thinking made by executives is the unfortunate thing. And I know we are getting very close to in which the time that Darren has to leave us.
Yeah. But just on these point there, like I think one of the things I love about the Alien movies is that all three of the first set of Alien movies are essentially fuck yous to the previous ones. Where like, no, but like Ridley Scott's Alien is like, man, feminism's great. Women can be as badass as men. And Cameron's like, shut the fuck up, Ridley. What's great about feminism is women can have families and be professionals too. And David Fincher's like, shut the fuck up, Cameron. What's great about the Alien movie is that God doesn't exist and he's going to hunt you down and murder everything that you fucking care about. And then Ridley Scott comes back for Covenant and he's like, okay, fine. You guys like the sequel where there were two aliens and a powerlifter. Fine. Fucking Covenant. Have at it. Like, I kind of love, and I obviously, all these directors have great affection for one another, but I love that there is this sense when you watch the Alien franchise back to back of being like, oi, the last guy was a fucking idiot. Here's how you fucking make an Alien movie. And sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it doesn't. But like, it's a very different energy than going, actually, I think the guy who made the first Aliens movie, I'm barely fit to wear the lick the soles of his boots, to walk in his footsteps, yeah. I think it's a different energy and it limits what the film can be by default, it sets boundaries. Whereas like when you do have like Cameron being like, fuck that, family movie time, baby, or Fincher being, fuck that, we're doing an autopsy of a 10-year-old, I think there is an energy and a friction to those movies that I find like really compelling because as an audience member, I have no idea where they're going. And there I can't set like a ceiling or a floor, admittedly, but a ceiling primarily on the quality of what the outcome's going to be,
I noticed that you left out Jean-Pierre Jeunet going, yeah, I got a piping hot a pizza here. Everyone act like you're in a circus.
I had a good time. I'm making the movie, but I'm going back to France to make Amelie. I apologize to both French and Italian listeners for
anyone.
We
apologize to almost anyone. It's real bad.
Anybody,
to everyone
who heard that, anybody,
top to bottom. John Blee.
I'm gonna order a taxi, and when it arrives, I'm gonna dash.
Lovely. Okay. John Blee, been a member for 6 months. Hello, gang. Any opinions on James Cameron's and others' use of AI in his 4K transfers, like Aliens and the aforementioned True Lies? To me, it looks horrible. Bad Jim thinks I don't get laid enough. So yes, the transfers on some of these recent 4K movies have been kind of bad. They've been using like AI to clean up kind of artifacting and like almost what you want on film when you watch a movie that was shot on film. And James Cameron to in a recent interview to people who said, hey, this isn't probably a great way to do this, pretty much said you're all virgins, so you need to get out of your mother's basements, which on one hand Big Jim is perfect; it could do no wrong. But on the other hand, like, well, I think there's kind of a point here, right?
I can't. It shocks me that anyone is surprised by this. Like, James Cameron is all about like trying to make his movies look better, and universally, film snobs don't believe that any of his movies look better. He doesn't care. James Cameron does not care. So I'm not surprised by his flippant remarks. I am surprised that he didn't offload this work to someone else. Like, just give this to someone who actually cares to make like the best looking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I have not seen the back-to-back stills. Like I said, I'm not that reverent towards the Alien franchise. So, but if that's your thing, I'm sure in 5 years they will find a new thing to sell you that's a better upscale.
8K.
8K. Finally, each individual grain is the size of a baby's head.
That's all I want. Tommy Salty, been a member for 6 months. Thank you so much, Tommy Salty. And then George Lucas with €2. Thank you, George Lucas. Shout out to Jean-Pierre Junet's Amelie after Alien Resurrection. Yeah, I agree. Jean-Pierre Jeunet, he's got had a great filmography. I don't think I've seen any of his movies in like 20 years, but Delicatessen, City of Lost Children, Amelie, Very Long Engagement.
But even like Resurrection, which I don't love, he seems happy to admit.
Yeah.
Like when he talks about Amelie, you imagine that is like, well, you obviously got like handled by Hollywood and felt really like uncomfortable and needed to escape. And he's like, no, I just had a really good time. I had the best time making it. And then they talk to Josh Whedon. He's like, he murdered my script. He murdered my script.
Those are two weird people to pair together. Like, does not seem like Joss Whedon
peanut butter and jelly.
Like, Jean-Pierre Jeunet being like, you're all weird vaudevillian actors.
It's the moment where like the Dominic Pignon comes through the door and like he obviously doesn't speak English or doesn't speak English that fluently. And again, I say this as somebody who does not speak French, so I have no stones to throw here. But he delivers the line, "What were you expecting, Santa Claus?" As if he has just been taught the line phonetically and does not understand the meaning of the words. It's just like something you say as you come through the door.
Yeah. It's great.
It's very, very unique energy has that movie.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Very unique energy. Blue McDee's Nuts with a $5 dono. Thank you so much. Recommendation: fun horror on Prime. A movie called For Sale. A mix of a horror comedy where Saul Goodman has to sell a haunted house. A fun B-movie twist. I like the idea of a slimy salesman needing to sell a haunted house. It's great. I'm going to add it to my list.
Add it.
What's it called?
For Sale.
For sale.
For sale.
For sale. Perfect.
Hell yeah.
If they make 3 more of them, you know, it could be called For Sale.
It's like naming the third Bad Boys movie Bad Boys for Life, and then not calling the fourth like bad one Bad Boys Forever.
Yeah.
Right?
They really screwed the pooch.
Yeah. Come on.
Get it together. Screwed the pooch. Lamb Slaughter with a £5 dono. Thank you so much. For no reason at all, here's a list of actors who are not dead: Lance Hendrickson, Winona Ryder, Michael Fassbender, literally the android you have in the movie. Yeah. Any number of them. Anyone else, because it's just a fucking robot. Just put some weird goo and spaghetti in his lower half.
By the way, did you notice that they call the android Rook because the android from Aliens is Bishop? And they're like, we don't want to draw attention to Prometheus, so he can't continue the naming convention of A, B, C, D. Of like, is it Ash, Bishop, Cal, David?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
I didn't know the ABCD thing, but yeah, I did notice the Rook Bishop thing. Yeah, like, okay, we get it. You like chess, real cool.
And also, just something that really bugged me, and maybe shouldn't, the 2 online part of Darren's brain, the moment where like the guy is teaching Rain how to shoot the weapon, which is obviously a riff from the scene in Aliens.
Yeah.
But like the bit where he's like, oh, by the way, it has auto aiming on, so you don't need any skill whatsoever to do it. And I'm like, this is precisely so people on the internet cannot call her a Mary Sue.
Mary Sue.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's using hacks. She's using Game Genie. What if the person who made the androids, instead of being obsessed with chess, was like obsessed with Pokemon and was like, Ian Holmes' name was just,
I am sorry, Jombly Wobbly. I see Jombly Wobbly being like, every time Darren speaks, I feel less excited about this movie. I feel sorry.
No. We ultimately were seeing.
Ultimately worth seeing. It's like, you will have problems with it. We have problems with it, but like it is not a perfect movie. It is not the Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, so it is not perfect. But it is still very.
But what is? But few things are, except for the Chapel Roan song.
Except for the Chapel Roan album. But it is incredibly worth seeing. I think, especially if you like horror movies, it has some great moments to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sovereign with a 20 euro dono. Thank you so much, Sovereign. Is there a difference between deep faking a dead actor with CG like Peter Cushing in Rogue One and animated depictions like Tarkin appearing in Star Wars cartoons and games well before Rogue One still modeled after Cushing? Opinions?
Ooh, a lot of gray area there. It, like modeling a character after someone. Like you have to pay artists to do that. You have to probably hire different voice actors. Like there is someone giving a performance there instead of the dead puppetry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
is Darren leaving?
I am going, so I will bid you guys farewell. Talk to you guys
Bye,
soon.
Darren.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for hanging out. Everyone go watch Darren's excellent backdrop. Well, don't watch it right now. Watch it when we're done. We're gonna be done soon.
When we're done.
If you watch it right now, that's really rude.
I mean, yeah. But a lot of gray area for as far as I'm considering. Like no one, you can't like using someone's likeness. Using a character is different than an actor, right?
Sure.
And so like, oh, we are just transposing this character into another medium is perfectly fine. Versus we are digitally puppeting a corpse because we want it to look exactly the same. Very, very different things.
Yeah, that's I just wish they just got in the habit just recast. Like even when Luke Skywalker showed up in, was it Mando or Boba Fett or whatever one of those, I think Mando. Like they got an actor to play him and then did the Mark Hamill CG thing over his face. The actor who plays him just looked like young Mark Hamill. And I'm like, just put him there and be like, I'm Luke Skywalker, guys. And I'll be like, okay.
and everyone would say, okay, great. Like, yeah, you're young. It looks like, and I know like Mark Hamill was on set. He was like consulting. He is alive, so he could give consent to do that. Yeah. So like, okay, fine. That's all like above the board morally, but just fucking hire an actor. You can find someone who looks kind of like young Mark Hamill.
Yeah, like we have biopics. Like Timothy Chalamet is playing Bob Dylan in a movie. They're not like, what if we get Bob Dylan and de-age him? Like we don't do that.
This is a thing that happens all the time.
Yeah,
let people get old. And let the dead die. That's my two things. Allow actors to just get old and then don't use them anymore. And that's fine. Use them in different roles. Make new things. Fuck.
Yep. Yeah. Gross. George Lucas with a 2 euro dono. Thank you so much. Speaking of giving birth, Immaculate was solid. I agree. Immaculate was, that was one of the movies Darren was mentioning earlier of how we sort of have all these Roe v. Wade kind of horror movies, both with Immaculate and First Omen and everything, and apparently Cuckoo's a little bit like that, which I haven't got a chance to see yet. But yeah, Immaculate was really good with Sydney Sweeney. That just popped up on Hulu, I believe. Oh, okay. So yeah, it is worth a watch if you like your slow-burn horror movies that have real gnarly payoffs at the end. So check it out.
Hell yeah, I'm down.
Flaming Whippet with a $5 dono. Thank you so much, Flaming Whippet. Alien vs. Predator 2 was the first instance the alien / Predalien, is that what a Predalien is? Did put eggs into a pregnant woman. No, that can't be true. Wait, they put eggs into a pregnant woman? I didn't rewatch Alien vs. Predator 1 or 2 during my rewatches. So this movie has like the woman's already pregnant and then she injects herself with the goo, and so the fetus just transforms into the scary basketball player, man. He was played by like a Romanian or a Hungarian basketball player. He was like 7'7" and just like, yeah.
Is that Trevor Newlin?
Who's that?
That's he is credited as Xenomorph.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
and just looking at his headshot, yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, maybe I'll give Alien vs. Predator and Alien vs. Predator 2 Requiem. Maybe I'll give them. No, well, maybe I won't.
I don't think you need to.
You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah, fair. That's very fair.
I just love wasting my own time. Lamb Slaughter with a 10-pound dono. Thank you so much. The Prometheus process is long-winded, but a spiked drink leading to an unwanted pregnancy and a woman literally fighting to have the abortion is the film's peak of symbolism. See, Prometheus is good. Everyone who said Prometheus was bad, time forgot them. They got washed away in the tide.
I can't wait. Like, Prometheus did come out at the very peak of like internet critic cynicism.
Mm-hmm.
And it came out at the very peak of actuallyism, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like it was just this perfect storm of couch what do you call it? Armchair quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, and cinema sins kind of stuff of like, why did the character do this? It's like because
Yeah,
it's
that was a
a
stupid
movie.
decision.
Because
Right.
if characters made logical decisions, every horror movie would start with them riding up to a scary looking cabin and then being like, let's just go to the hotel. And then they
Yeah,
turn around and then they
exactly.
leave and there's no movie and we don't get movies.
And so like I do wonder, I don't think it'll happen anytime soon, but like maybe 20 years down the line when you and I are very, very old men
Mm.
and like we've had enough space between Prometheus coming out and now where people can actually look at that movie without that air of cynicism. And I do
Yeah.
wonder how it will hold up. Yeah.
Yeah. I also would have wondered if he actually got to like make his, because it very much feels like he had a plan for the second movie, and then Alien Covenant was like, well, we're just gonna bring back the aliens and we're gonna kill off characters off screen and stuff. But I would have been interested to see like what his actual like David trilogy would have been.
Yeah.
Quintuple A with a $5 dono. Thank you so much. Darren talking Borderlands, Yahtzee talking movies. We are approaching critic singularity. Yeah, yesterday we talked about movies that influenced games, not like adaptations or anything, but like Aliens, how Aliens introduced the idea of colonial marines into kind of the lexicon, which gave us stuff like Gears of War and Halo and all that stuff. So
I mean, hell, even the original Metroid was heavily
yeah, the reveal at the end, oh, it's a woman.
Yeah.
I'm playing as a woman and she has to save this babby from a Metroid. Yeah.
But that's where we are now. Like that,
Yeah.
people are pulling from from video games, like they used to pull from comic books, like they used to pull from regular books to make movies. And I think it's great. And I even think like we talked a lot about the kind of video gamification of Alien Romulus, the ship redocking and catching the cargo sequence, the auto aim gun,
Yeah.
the flying through the swirling anti-gravity acid.
Yeah, that all feels like video game, like Dead Space levels.
Of course, these are huge video game set pieces, which I think work really well for action movie set pieces as well.
Yeah. We were talking specifically yesterday. I brought up how Indiana Jones, like if you just look at Raiders, like it just feels like a video game in terms of like every level kind of has a different thing of like, oh, here's a puzzle level where you got to explore a tomb, and now you got to run away from a boulder, and then now you have to fight Nazis with your whip, and then now you're on the back of a truck and you got to fight, and now you're driving a tank, and now you're on a plane.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely.
And then Jeremy Claybrook looks like the last super chat with a $50 dono. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Hey, new member after all the recent drama. Love the work. Keep it up. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
Appreciate that support.
we're thrilled to be here. We got a great week of stuff ahead of
Absolutely.
you. Not only Eric and I will be back with Casey and Jamate in we'll probably be live in about 20 minutes, half an hour, because on the hour is going to be the Gamescom opening night live stream. Bunch of that's just a Jeff Keighley produced. So if you like Summer Game Fest, if you like the Game Awards for their reveals, it's just gonna be 2 hours of reveals. Y'all love reveals. You love revealing.
That's right. Yeah. So this is going to be we're wrapping up like right now. This is a little bit of a shorter episode. This is the length of an episode like that this podcast should be, but we usually just end up talking for way longer because that is our job, is just
And because
talking.
I really like talking to Darren. So it's like it feels like, oh, we can get paid to just talk to a guy that I can listen to and learn from. This sounds
like
great.
That's my favorite part, is how like Darren will we will pop a quarter in Darren and he will just say the most brilliant things and then apologize for talking too much when it's like, no, this is what we want you here for.
I feel like Darren might be Canadian with as much as he apologizes for things that he should not apologize for. So
that's right.
But and then that'll be our other stream today. Tomorrow we'll have Yahtzee Tries, we'll have Firelink, and then Thursday obviously Devil May Cry. Jack, I think you and I are gonna be back for more Elden Ring, figuring out if that maybe Thursday, maybe Friday.
Thursday, Friday, we're gonna get some more Elden Ring in 100%. It's a full week of content. It's going to be great because late next week, a big portion of us are off to PAX West.
Yeah, that's right. You guys are going to be pretty much the back half of next week through the weekend, Labor Day weekend. A bunch of you guys are going to be going. You'll be there shooting videos, and then you and Jesse have your panel Sunday evening, right? Like
That's
7 p.m.
right. If you are going to be at PAX West, myself and Jesse Galina are giving a Dungeon Master help desk, a Dungeon Master problem solving panel where we are going to kind of take our own situations, how we handle them as Dungeon Masters, take situations from the audience and figure out like how we would solve these problems, fun and interesting ways to solve problems as Dungeon Masters. If you're going to be there, or if you're just going to be there and don't care about D&D, just come by and say hi. We're going to be around.
Yeah, the team will be there, obviously hanging out. Yeah, and if you see folks on the show floor and they don't look like they're terrifyingly busy, just go up and say hi. It'll be great to see y'all. And then we'll have new full. Obviously, we had great edited videos this week. We had the new the premiere of the archive yesterday. Please check that out. Incredible work by Javed on my script for Mega Man Legends. That was an excellent video. Today we had Darren's backdrop on Borderlands. Tomorrow we're gonna have new Fully Ramblematic. Friday we'll have a new design delve. We haven't said we got a new thing. Well, we got season 2 of Adventures Night launching on Saturday. And then I don't. We haven't officially. We're not going to officially pull the trigger on this. But I think if you like new things and if you like stuff that we absolutely adored making, stay tuned because very soon you should be able to see a new thing that we've been working on for a while that we are all very pleased with.
Next week, Monday. A new thing is going to get released, a project that we have been tinkering with behind the scenes for quite some time now, and we're finally going to release it into the wild next week Monday. It's going to be a ton of fun. It's a project that the team in general is very, very excited about.
Yes.
We won't say what officially that is. And we have one more super chat before we wrap up, which is P-Lash T. Thank you for the super chat. Yahtzee insists over and over that he knows nothing about movies, but I think you can get him in with Darren as long as you stick to films before 2000.
We'll get him and Darren on something. You know, we'll get him on. We'll have one of us playing a movie game.
Ooh, sure.
Like a video. So instead of it being like we need to have a full conversation, it'll just be spoofing and goofing over a stream of blank, Alien Isolation or something, or Home Improvement. They're both big Home Improvement fans, so I know they want to play the Home Improvement 2D platformer for the Super Nintendo. So, yeah, you didn't know that. Big Home Improvement fans. That's it. We're done. Jack, thank you so much. Darren, of course, not here. Always thanks to Darren. And thank you, Eric, for producing. And thank you, everyone watching live, listening on your podcast service of choice, watching the VOD. We appreciate you dearly. And so, yeah, we'll be back. Eric and I will be back. We'll probably be live around quarter to the hour. So, Jesus, that was a weird way to say that. So, like 20 minutes, 20 or 30 minutes.
In about 20 minutes, basically, everybody go refresh yourself, relieve yourself, come back in about 20 minutes for Gamescom coverage.
Very exciting. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoons, and we'll see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.